Welcome to part 2 of my takedown of the Dial of Destiny. I will link the previous part in the description below in case you missed it. Let's just jump into things. 3 smelly, mismatched socks hanging next to a dead bonsai tree. Is there a better metaphor for this movie? Probably not. Well, let's continue. Okay, so a folded flag and a miniature shrine to Mutt. Another metaphor for this movie. Admittedly, it's a good example of show don't tell, since it really isn't referenced again until much later. But what the audience might miss here is the fact that Disney has killed off yet another iconic character dynasty. Kill the past, they always say. That might just be Disney's motto at this point. Replace the Skywalkers with Palpatines. All of those great characters you might have once liked. You know, the ones we paid billions of dollars to exploit? Yeah, those guys suck and need to die. And you suck as an audience for preferring them to our new super great characters. What a bunch of fake fans. Ugh, but I digress. Let's keep panning to, I shudder to say, the sad old man sleeping in his underwear in a recliner in a dingy apartment. Is this whole scene going to be a giant metaphor for the movie as a whole? Why does he live here? He's held tenured positions at multiple universities for decades, and was even the dean of Marshall College for at least a few years. I know you want to erase the 4th movie because everyone hates it, but things did happen in it. I wonder how Mr. Mangold will feel when the next movie completely erases this one. The old man, as I think I'll keep calling him, since he's definitely not our hero anymore for a multitude of reasons, didn't even have a fixed teacher's salary for most of his life. He used to get paid to hunt treasures. Why can't he be successful? Why can't you show a tiny modicum of respect, movie? Ugh, let's keep going. He's startled awake by a moderately apt Beatles song blaring through the apartments. The old man stumbles to his feet and gives every woman in the theater what they wanted to see. 40 years ago. Sorry, Harrison Ford, I love you as an actor, but there's a time and a place, and you have passed both. He rushes out to voice his consternation with the youthful exuberance of his neighbors. But it's Moon Day, so they ignore him. He's just cranky. He hasn't had his morning Irish coffee yet. You just can't help yourself, movie. Though I guess I don't blame the old guy for needing some liquid courage to face the rest of this atrocity he's part of. But wait, there's more. Divorce papers from Marion. The one thing Crystal Skull got right. Deleted. Why can't you stop, movie? I hear the first step is admitting you have a problem. That one scene thoroughly degraded the entire Indiana Jones brand. There aren't many more effective ways to make Indiana Jones a worse character, or to show greater disrespect to the world as a whole, but I have faith that this film will succeed in finding some. Speaking of, he takes the subway to campus, where he gives this movie's archaeology lecture. He shortens his explanation to the bare minimum that the class needs to know. The students are bored, falling asleep, and unprepared, and he doesn't seem to care. One of them proves to be the target audience for today's Disney movies.
Not the Syracuse in New York, Tanya. The one in Sicily.
And we're introduced to the star of this movie, our new hero. I'll call her Fleabag, not because it's her character in a show that no one watched but everybody supposedly loved, but because her character reminds me of excrement. Just look how smug this Kathleen Kennedy self-insert appears because she knows basic answers to questions. And take a second to appreciate how animated the old guy gets when someone shows even the slightest interest in his life's passion. I'll try to point out these small glimpses of Indiana Jones wherever I find them, because I desperately want this movie to be better. Too bad none of the actual students care at all, so the energy is just wasted. Time for the first couple of mini history lessons for this video. When the old man asks what archaeological evidence of the siege of Syracuse exists, Fleabag responds the Antikythera. Now, the old man likes this answer, but shouldn't. The Antikythera is not archaeological proof of the siege, even within the story of this film. It wasn't found in Syracuse. It was found off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, in the Antikythera Strait. You know, they named it after where it was found. Interestingly, Indiana Jones passed right by it on the way to open the Ark of the Covenant. The shipwreck was likely the result of pirate activity, since the island was a haven for pirates until Pompey the Great eradicated them a couple of centuries later. But what's important is that it has absolutely no direct connection to the city of Syracuse. The old man wants irrefutable evidence, and is given something that was found in a shipwreck about 500 miles away. Also, just in case someone wants to respond that he actually asks about irrefutable archaeological evidence of the inventions of Archimedes, the Antikythera isn't even definitively one of his inventions. The theory that it is based on a vague connection within the mechanism to a lunisolar calendar used by Corinth, of which Syracuse was a colony, creating a potential connection to the Archimedes school. Pretty tangential. But there are other theories too. The other artifacts from the shipwreck were vases from Rhodes, where there lived a contemporary astronomer named Hipparchus, whose work regarding lunar motion is used within the Antikythera mechanism, as well as coins from Pergamum, which was a center of scientific and scholarly pursuits at the time. To be fair, the coins were discovered in the 1970s by Jacques Cousteau, so they aren't part of the historical record for this film. The theoretical connection to Archimedes, though, wasn't even suggested until 2008. And there's also contention over when the dial was constructed. It might not even be from his lifetime. The point is, the Antikythera is not definitive proof of anything beyond the scientific superiority of the Greeks, since the next mechanism of its kind would not be created until the 14th century AD. Okay, lesson over. Let's return to idiot school. The class is interrupted when a group of students wheel a television into the room to watch Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin shaking hands having returned to Earth. We'll ignore the nitpick that the television isn't plugged into anything, and get to the point that really confuses me. I wonder if I need to do another history lesson already. No, let's just talk about how bad this is. Moon Day is July 20th, 1969. It was a Sunday, but the actual moonwalk didn't happen until late in the day, so they could be referring to July 21st as the date. That would make it a Monday, so a work day, as the old guy put it, but this screen shows the astronauts back on Earth, shaking hands with people. The trip home took 4 days, and they also had a weeks-long quarantine period after returning, so it definitely can't be Monday the 21st. Maybe they're talking about the New York City Parade Day, since we are about to see that in the film. That was August 13th. A Wednesday, so also a work day. But that begs a very specific question that no one involved was smart enough to ask. Why is school in session? Even summer school would be over in mid-August.
Just finished fall-spring semester.
Bring on summer-winter.
And as someone who took these types of classes, I can attest that no one would start or end an archaeology class of any level or subject with the Siege of Syracuse.
Jesus, read a book once in your life.
Also, this confusion bleeds into the next scene, so let's continue. The interruption causes the dejected old man to end class early. He walks toward his office to discover his retirement party. What? When are we? If this is August 13th, what is going on? Who retires on a Wednesday, mere minutes after telling his class there's an upcoming test? Who wrote this? And is this the end of a long summer school session, or the beginning of a new semester? Why would they schedule this party during parade day? Wouldn't most of the attendees want to go to that instead, since it's like right outside their door? Did anyone at all think about what was happening here? Why even ask? No one thought for a second about this.
That's your problem. You don't think.
And it's a little nitpick, but there are students in this crowd. The kid who gives the old guy a clock was talking to the girl who thought Syracuse, New York was attacked by Romans in 213 BC. Have we jumped in time? And if so, why? They were all watching the Moon Day stuff when the old guy left, but now some of them are suddenly at the party? Also, the only student who admires him is the nerdy white male? Is that how Disney sees Indiana Jones fans? I wonder. I can't say it definitively, but it's become a standard practice for the worst of the world's hack filmmakers to insert characters into their trash-tier content to represent the people who recognize that they're hacks, as a way to pretend to be clever, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. Anyway, they diminish the old man further by making him ungrateful as well. He gives away his retirement gift immediately after leaving the building, and if that nerdy kid represented the fans of the old movies, giving away the gift could take on another meaning as well. He doesn't need you anymore, does he? Except for, the box office, since this film flopped spectacularly. Fleabag follows the old guy to a bar in the middle of the day so she can reveal her identity, while a random blaxploitation character watches her. Let's call this one Cleopatra Jones, cause she's modeled after her. Or Foxy Cleopatra, but we'll go with the more serious one. The old guy shows disdain for space travel, because new frontiers of discovery are definitely not something he'd care about. And comparing the moon to Reno because there's nothing there but dust is a bit strange. He does remember that he found the Ark of the Covenant in a city that had been buried under the sands of Egypt for centuries, right? And there are probably some great Native American artifacts buried near Reno, don't you think? Would he turn down a chance to attempt an archaeological dig on the moon if asked? Meanwhile, on the other side of the parade, for reasons, a room service waiter arrives at a hotel room. 3 agents, or at least they appear to be agents until someone later says they're not, answer the door. On second thought, let's call them bodyguards. Or, better yet, goons. Why would anyone think it's a good idea to give a Nazi a 3-to-1 advantage? And the one agent assigned to keep him in line is on crutches for completely unknown reasons. Maybe they needed representation to be eligible for Oscars. Let's move on before that thought makes me retch. Although never explained, one of the future or current Nazis is trying to learn German, so even if these men were American agents, it's still patently obvious that this guy's not staying one for long. It's hard to find a name to call him for this video, though, since his roles as the Corinthian in Sandman and Clement Mansell in Justified display way more competence, and frankly, sanity, than this guy. I guess he gets to stay Kleber. The other goon is a meathead, who may or may not be a reference to the guy who was hit by the airplane rotors in Raiders. I'll call him Frankengoon. Anyhow, the room service meal is for their protectee, Schmidt, who doesn't eat anything off wheels, whatever that means. And the big reveal is that Schmidt is none other than Hannibal Lecter, who is neither dead nor massively scarred by his faceplant on that train 24 years ago. Well, whatever he looks like, he's the scientist that built the Saturn V rocket. Him. Just him. All of Project Paperclip was just one Nazi. And so the CIA agents are wining and dining him in New York so that he can have a conversation with a black porter delivering room service. I think we're meant to see this exchange as an example of unbridled racism. He wants to know where on earth the man's ancestors come from. Super racist. And he's still bitter about the Nazis losing World War II in 1969. Bitter enough to passive-aggressively ask if the war veteran who is now working as a hotel serviceman is enjoying his victory, and claiming that World War II was lost by Hitler, not won by America. It's an odd perspective, and an odd thing to bring up to a random stranger almost a quarter century later, but we'll go with it. Back to Fleabag, who tells the old man that she's a newly minted archaeologist writing a dissertation on the Antikythera. Kinda diminishes her earlier answers in class, doesn't it? She doesn't necessarily know anything. The old guy just happened to be talking about a topic tangential to her research subject. The old guy admires her research effort, but Fleabag responds that she didn't actually do any work. She's just plagiarizing her father's notes on the dial. She's also eager to retrieve the dial, proposing a plan for the two of them to travel to the French Alps, where they supposedly lost it on the train. She wants it for fame. Wow, how vapid. Okay, I'll get ahead of the story a bit to reveal that this is actually a lie. But we should acknowledge that when she's putting her best foot forward, Fleabag presents herself as a fame hag who steals other people's work to gain acclaim with minimal effort. There was another archaeologist who said something similar, wasn't there?
Again, we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away.
The villain, remember? This film's chosen hero is the villain of a Saner movie. And then she convinces the old guy to help her by emotionally manipulating him, exploiting the memories of his father and the quest for the Grail. They return to the college, and Cleopatra Jones shares their location with Hannibal's goons. Shouldn't one of them be with Hannibal now? Also, she's very hostile to them, even though they are implied to be her fellow agents and not just Nazi goons at this point in the movie. Until the goons run off on their own and the boss agent on crutches yells,
"Get back here! You're not an agent!"
That clears that up, I guess. Not really, but they think it did. Cleopatra Jones rushes after the goons as the old man leads Fleabag to the dial, which he has hidden under some arrowheads in a drawer in some storage room somewhere. I thought the old guy's whole philosophy was,
"That belongs in a museum!"
Maybe this is the hidden storage space of a museum, though it should be said that it's not Marcus's museum. The old guy explains her father's theory that the dial could predict fissures in time, something Archimedes stumbled over while trying to determine why the moon's orbit was irregular. Yeah. Super believable. Trust the science, guys. The moon's orbit causes time fissures or something. Or maybe it's like the accidental discovery of penicillin. Archimedes was just sitting there in a bath, staring up at the moon while gnawing on the dial, and it randomly pointed to a time fissure, which he understood instantly, shouting Eureka at the top of his lungs and running naked into the future. Also, Hannibal has the same understanding about the dial's use, but he said it gives the power of gods. Is a time fissure that occurs randomly in nature a godlike power that can be attained by a human? I would argue no. Cleopatra Jones joins the goons, who found the old man and his Fleabag, but instead of chasing them, they're rifling through papers in his office, which isn't his office because he just retired. A secretary catches them. Cleopatra Jones tries to cover their intrusion by proclaiming it's just a run-of-the-mill warrantless search, because she's just tip-toppity at this whole secret agent thing. Kleber shoots the woman as she rushes to tell one of the professors. Apparently, Hannibal said no witnesses, and a doctor's note trumps the law to Cleopatra Jones, who also lets a professor get killed before her boss hobbles in on his crutches. I hate to keep dwelling on the crutches, but it's all the character he gets. I don't even know if he's CIA. In fact, the audience doesn't really get to know who any of these people are at even a basic level. Cleopatra Jones being CIA is just conjecture made by the old guy later on in the film, and everything else we know about any of the other characters is based on that. The old guy admits how bad a friend he is, not even reading any of the letters he was sent by Dobby, and sets up a lie he can catch Fleabag in later. Like 30 seconds later. Setup, payoff, boom. Great writing. Fleabag wraps up the dial and tries to avoid the old guy's questions, as the goons and Cleopatra Jones approach from behind them, guns ready. Fleabag flees, leaving the old guy to fight off the goons as he tries to follow. The goons suddenly forget that they're holding guns, by the way. But then, Fleabag locks the old guy in the room with the people who just murdered his colleagues. Even if you accept that she doesn't know that they just killed people, they are actively brandishing weapons at both of them, and she traps him in the room. Let's put this in the clearest terms possible. Helena Shaw actively tried to kill Indiana Jones. Full stop. Let that sink in. The agents and goons close in, but the old guy kicks the bolted-down shelves loose and rides them to safety. Kleber shoots the cage to follow Fleabag, and the team splits up. For some reason, most of them choose to follow the old man who isn't their target. Old guy sneaks through the offices and discovers his 2 dead colleagues, in different places than when they were shot. He touches them, because he's stupid, then calls the operator to get the police. Okay, it's a rotary phone, but this scene has other vibes.
Hello, operator. Give me the number for 911.
I mean, he didn't try to call from an office or try to hide at all, since, he knows he's being chased. He's just out in the open where the agents can take him, and he leaves a bloodstain on the phone. Meanwhile, Fleabag somehow gets from the roof of the college across to another building and down to the street before the goons and agents can figure out what to do. Which character is smarter according to the movie? And for a movie about time, the creators don't seem to think it's important. The goon squad split up, one side chasing Fleabag and the other going after the old guy. The old guy is caught at the same time Fleabag escapes. An agent comes up to tell them that they caught the old guy, and Kleber and Cleopatra Jones are instantly on the street awaiting the downstairs team, dragging the old guy out of the building. They got down from the roof faster than those people moved through a short hallway. Oh, and there was a vague news story about how Cleopatra Jones's actress was offended by a line in the movie, presumably a racial slur, so it was removed. Then why does she use a racial slur in the movie?
Sugar happy cracker.
We'll ignore the fact that she would probably have called him honky in 1969. That's okay for her to say, but actual Nazis using racial slurs is too much. Seems hypocritical, but whatever. Also, shouldn't she tread more carefully when discussing a trigger-happy racist to his face? She's far from Aryan, if I recall correctly. Speaking of trigger-happy, why is the old guy in a black head bag, but the 2 goons who murdered the civilians inside are just fine and part of the team? I mean, yeah, maybe Cleopatra Jones didn't want to antagonize them when she was outnumbered, but did you see how many agents they had chasing? Or was this part of the goons' doctor's note? Were they vaccinated against prosecution? Also, this is the second time in this movie that the old guy has been put in a head bag and dragged to a place that he can recognize. Do you have any idea why you would put a bag over someone's head, other than for the recreational reasons that clearly caused the lack of brain cells that writing this movie required? It's so they don't know where they are when you take the bag off. But the old guy just gets to look out the window at all the familiar buildings he sees outside his work every day.
That's the mystery. The only mystery is why you bothered to blindfold me at all.
I think I better end it there. The parade is a disaster unto itself, so it deserves its own section. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the little buttons below and subscribing to the channel. There's quite a bit more muck to rake on this travesty of a film, so I hope to see you in the next one.